comment form. Once the comment period's over, the SEC will vote on one of the 5 options. While all of this seems like a step in the right direction, I'm not letting up on this issue because I believe they will not get it right. That's why tonight I want to talk to Senator Ted Kaufman of Delaware. He's been pretty vocal about the need to stop the bear raids that are killing the average investor and drove so many of you out of this market forever. In addition to being a Wharton Business School graduate and having 50 years of experience as an investor, Senator Kaufman has been leading a bipartisan push since March that's been picking up steam among some key politicians to get the SEC to end abusive short selling. He's got some interesting ideas on how to enforce it all. So let's bring him on. Senator Kaufman, welcome to Mad Money.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Sir, can you please explain to our viewers the importance of at least making the short sellers to be no more powerful than they were for 70 years before the SEC in 2007 decided to give the short sellers what I consider to be the upper hand?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. First and most important is that, you know, the market has gone down a lot, and I think part of the reason is because people have lost credibility. People have lost the feeling that they're getting a fair deal when they go into the market. I think the most important thing we have to do now to get people back, obviously the economy is a major, major problem. We got to turn that around, but we got to have people feel like they're going to get a fair share if they get back in the market and that the market's on the level. And clearly, every indication is that some things went on in terms of short selling, both the Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, but in others, where abusive short sellers drove the price down and legitimate people in the market, you know, got mauled by them. And I think the Securities Exchange Commission, I wrote to Mary Shapiro back on March 3rd. She said during her hearing for her nomination that she wanted to do something about the uptick rule. I wrote on March 3rd, said, hey, okay, we had the March rule for 70 years. And we ought to put it back in again. And really, they finally got around to saying, well, they got these 5 proposals. It says be room for comment. We really have to do something about the uptick rule to send a message. First off, it's the right thing to do, but send a message to everyone that you have confidence in the market. And then we have the other abusive short selling in terms of folks not having the stock when they actually do the short sales.
Senator, my understanding, I was up at my Harvard Law School 25th reunion giving the keynote speech. I spoke with enough professors up there and people in the business to know we've already lost this issue. That basically they're going to put a watered-down version of the uptick rule back because the other interest, the more powerful interest, the short sellers and the people who claim that there should be parity between short sellers and long have won, and that the SEC was captured by an academic debate which says that you and I are dead wrong and know nothing. How can that be?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not willing to give up on Mary Shapiro yet. I mean, there were a lot of bad decisions made in 2007. Bernie Madoff, the capital ratio decisions, the racial ratings, where the SEC just didn't do the right thing, and they know they didn't, and I think they made the same mistake on the uptick rule. But I think Mary Shapiro's committed to doing this thing, and I think they're going to move forward. That's why we've got a bipartisan group of senators who have written to her asking to do the uptick rule and also stop the abuse of short selling in terms of uncovered naked short selling. Right. So I'm still a believer, and we'll see what happens. But that's why I put the law in. And in fact, if in fact they do exactly what you said, which I don't think we'll do, we'll have to move forward with the law. But I hope we don't have to do that.
All right, my understanding from the academics and the people, when I've read all the testimony from 2007, a lot of it was academic related. One of my old bosses at Goldman Sachs was a great professor. A great professor. His name was Fisher Black. Right. And he wrote, he's Black-Scholes model. He's probably the foremost options teacher and foremost options knowledge man of the last century. And he wrote, markets look a lot more efficient from the banks of the Charles than from the banks of the Hudson. Are we going to be defeated by a group of ivory tower academics who the late, great Fisher Black tell us don't know what they're doing?
I really, really hope not. Hope that's not where it goes. I don't think that's where it's going to go. I think they really want to do the right thing. But remember, that decision wasn't just based on academics. They took a period during 2005 to test short selling thing. I mean, 2005 was a roaring
greatest bull market.
How are you going to find out what happens with abusive short selling if you take the 2005? It seems to me somebody would have gone back and taken a look at 2007 in 2008 and see what actually happened when the market was going down.
I totally agree. Now, one of the things that they use as evidence and as a reason why we don't need the uptick rule is a slippery slope argument that I learned in first-year law school, which is something that has to be blunted, and that is there are already so many exceptions, including the ETF exception, which I think is used, particularly the double and triple shorts, to get around federal margin rules. What do you think of the idea that there have been so many exceptions that we don't need a rule back?
I think there may be some exceptions, but we have to have a rule back. And I just don't think this argument that we don't have the technology or the markets have changed, or anything like that, we can make this thing happen. We just have to have a will. Most of these folks are arguing out of both sides of their mouth. They're saying we don't need it, but then we couldn't have it. That, as you learn in your first year of law school, is not really the kind of arguments people make who are serious about what it is they're talking about. They're willing to throw any mud against the wall and see if some of it will stick. Well,
one of the things I found, Senator Kaufman, is there is a belief among certain large institutions that any amount of trading is good, and that the large hedge funds and the exchanges favor as much trading as possible, even if it is to the detriment of both the capital formation in this country and the retail investor. How can they get away with that, sir?
I have no idea. And by the way, there's loads. I've heard from lots of large institutions that say right on. And all the markets on the naked short selling, all the markets wrote to the SEC and said they're in favor of getting away with the naked short selling too. So I just think I really, and I hate to say this, Jim, but I just get the indication this is a group that just doesn't want to admit they made a mistake. Not Mary Shapiro, but the other SEC commissioners. That's the stuff that worries me. Is I think they just don't want to admit they made a mistake. And they've made so many mistakes that I just think that if they start admitting mistakes, they feel like they can't, there's nowhere to stop. And so I think that's what the problem is. If that's the problem, I think hope Mary Shapiro can work her way around it.
Yeah, she's fresh. She has the ability to do that. Senator Kaufman, you are a breath of fresh air. Please come back on our show. You get this debate. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Thank
Jim,
you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone, you